and welcome again to another yoga clip with Yoga with Laura Ashland. And we are working on our bones a little bit. So I'm going to bring our friend over a little bit closer to us, and we're going to take a look at the spine. We started with the cervical spine. We went a little into the shoulder and the humeral head. We talked about the scapular bony plate, a little bit of the ribs and how they are attached to the 12 bones of the thoracic spine. We're going to delve just a little bit deeper into the lumbar spine. Now there are 5 lumbars, and the L1 is kind of attached to the T12. So there's a little attachment there that they move together. They really don't move very independently. 2, 3, and possibly 4, the top half of 4, tend to be a little bit more mobile, but not much. And then 4 is fused to 5, and 5 is fused to what we have down here called the bony plate also. This is the sacrum. The sacrum comes from the word sacred in Latin, and this triangular bone is exactly that. It is very sacred because this bone is attached through tendon and ligament, mostly ligament, bone to bone of course, to the pelvic plate. So the iliac crest of the pelvic plate on both sides. And then it also has a ligament attachment here to the base of the L's. So this most tender part of our body that can't move, very stationary piece, very sacred area called the holy bone sometimes, because it can't move, but look at its location. It's in one of the most powerful parts of the body. There's a lot going on here. There's evacuation, there's reproductive, there's so much going on in the lower part of the body. And the movement is hindered by all these attachments to the bony plate here and the lumbar 5. So because it's kind of encumbered, and yet it's in the very busy area of low lats and the gluteal muscles and the abdominals in the front and the powerful femoral muscles and the quads of the thighs and even the hamstrings, it seems to be in the middle of Grand Central Station, and yet it's one of the most vulnerable, tender areas of our body. So we want to learn how to take really good care of this, and remembering that there's a little bit of sealed here and a little seal here, that this is mobility of the rotation of the rib cage, but not necessarily mobile here. So here we go with our low spine. And again, the front, very much, that's the tailbone, or the coccyx bone at the bottom. And it feels really good when we get that plate onto the floor, nice and flat on the floor. But there is a natural arc to the low spine that creates that buoyancy and the spring in our step, and that's the lordosis curve. We have a kyphosis curve here, and then another lordosis curve at the top. So we do like and appreciate some of the rounded or the S shape of our spine because that does give us a little bit of mobility, but also it taxes a lot on these very fine bones here. So our spine, again, low spine is attached to the very, very busy pelvic bowl, the very busy, huge femoral bone, largest bone in the body, and the acetabulum, the socket of the hip, and the trochanter, the top of the hip. That is our spine with all the discs in the center. We're trying to keep those discs stacked as we move. I can show you a wonderful piece here, how straight we can come down and keeping a nice flat spine. Even here, even in this toy or this model, that's the safest place for our bones to be. That's quite a hamstring stretch, right? But we want to make sure that this stays into neutral and that it doesn't dip too low and doesn't go too high, and certainly the lumbars through our cat-cow and we try to get a little bit of fluidity in our backbone, that's great, but we want to make sure that we keep a beautiful flat spine here. And again, that's that drawing up of the rib cage, drawing in and supporting the spine through the ribs and the muscles here. There are 33 bones in our spine. Again, that includes 7 in the neck, 12 in the thoracic spine, which we did earlier, and then we've got the very delicate 5 lumbars. And if you are always wondering about back pain, it's coming from this area mostly of the body due to there's not a lot of muscle there. You have a QL, a muscle here, and a muscle here. And again, like the intercostal rib cage, the muscles of the low back are in a diagonal. The QL muscles are the most powerful back here, and then of course you have the large lats that go over the top. The erector spinae that keep you erect and upward. But mostly down here in this area, it's tendon and ligaments. They look like little fettuccine widths of straps, and therefore child's pose and a lot of opening of the low back. Any forward folding that we do, whether we're seated or standing, is helping to lengthen this area where you don't want it to draw up and get so tight. We want to have this a little bit more open and soft here so that maneuverability is easy. So there we go. There are some big muscles here, but they're on either side of the spine. There's very little here. So we think that those muscles can get in there and help us, and they're really quite delicate. 33 bones. Move them carefully, protect them. Sometimes the spine is referred to as the golden joint. It is considered a full joint altogether, even though it's segmented into 33 separate bones. Alrighty.